Hey, I'm Jim Rhodes, Artist Relations for Radial. Welcome to Radial On Record, and today I'm joined by Grammy award-winning musician Jason Mraz. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Jim. I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
I appreciate it. Hey,
Yeah.
congratulations, first of all, on release of your latest album, your seventh album. Looked really good.
Thanks. Thanks.
Love it.
It's my proudest achievement, but I've probably said that about every album, but I really do feel like that this record it's timely in its subject matter, but it's also continues to dive into wordplay and puns and internal rhymes and alliteration and uh, just wordplay that I've always enjoyed as a writer, having fun with language. And then on top of that, the whole record's a reggae album, which is
Mhm.
a genre that I've always been a fan of, and I've dabbled in it in my live show. Thanks to surrounding myself with amazing musicians, I can do that. But this time, we brought into the studio Michael Goldwasser, an amazing producer in the reggae genre, most famously with Easy Star All Stars, and we put a dynamite band together to really make it as authentic as possible. So yeah, it's a new reggae album, and it's I'm thrilled about it just for its content and its style and its uh, sonic spectrum of just what's going on inside of it. It's very cool.
Well, it's also, if I could, to me, it sounds and feels like a reflection of what we need more of today, which is,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like just caring, sharing good vibes, and get past the noise and give us more of what we need, and that's love and sharing some good music with a really, really good feel, right?
Yeah, yeah. And behind the scenes, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I might start a song by myself in my journal on my guitar or keyboard or something, but I always hand it off to someone or invite someone into the room to say, check this out. What do you think about this? Let's dance this out. Let's sing this together. And so all the songs get built either with one other person, like Chaska Potter from Raining Jane, or all of Raining Jane, who've been collaborators of mine
Mm.
for uh, over a decade, to the producer, to band members. I mean, one of the tracks has 10 contributors on it because everyone coming in the room says, what if we go here? What if we go here? And so it becomes this not a committee, not a songwriting committee like you would find in major label situations, but just kind of a village coming around an idea, helping lift it up and
Nice.
celebrate the idea. And then it also, it was an album that we made independently without a major label overhead. We just made it in the backyard with friends,
Nice.
and we're able. What I love about that is I'm able to just call in some of my favorite people and give them jobs, first of all, to come in and be a musician, be a great musician. I'm going to pay you the best day rate I can afford. Um, and in fact, it was such a great project for everyone else. I was nervous that everyone else got paid, and I would probably never get paid on this album because of how much I spent here in my backyard. But that's a real pleasure and a privilege for me because I was able to march it around a couple of paraded around some independent labels and actually and get a deal for the record, which has another story. Yeah.
Well,
So anyway, you were saying it's a great vibe. The songs were written in 2019, dreaming of what's possible for 2020 and beyond.
sure.
What kind of good vibe and love presence
Mhm.
can we continue to bring forth, and maybe shake off our differences and dance it
Yeah,
out,
no kidding.
or let's dance differently together and remember that we're all fools, that we're all just trying to figure this out,
Yeah.
that there shouldn't be one concrete way that turns into passive aggressiveness or even violence
Mhm.
trying to solidify that idea. Instead, I think music is a fluid language that even the listener and the dancer
Mhm.
get to be a part of that conversation.
Hey, I want to talk to you about a couple of other things that I know you're very, very supportive and very active. Your foundation, your Jason Mraz. I
Hmm.
mean, you've raised a lot of money. You've brought a lot of awareness. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man. I grew up going to after school programs, summer programs, and I know how beneficial they are to get you those stage hours that you want, to get you the training that you want, or just the music that you want to be singing or learning. And as I got older, and successful, started to realize that I I now also had the gift of giving back.
Sweet.
And I discovered in my adult life that those programs I went to were were paid for by donors. And me going there as a kid, scholarship was because donors were giving to these organizations to make sure kids could have these programs. And I guess as a kid, I just assumed you don't know where that you just assume, okay, it's school, it's going to be there for you. But as an adult, I realized no, some of these programs are struggling and they need constant visibility, or they need donors, regular donors, or people who are helping enroll others to this program. So long story short, I just started donating to programs that I went to as a kid, and now it's grown into a foundation that supports inclusive arts programming and the advancement of equality. So we're making sure we're out there learning about programs that are really going into the fringe of communities, or being set up in communities that are offering opportunities where there might otherwise be none. Because those opportunities will be life changing, not just for that student, that
Absolutely.
artist, but that kid's family
Yeah.
especially. When we've seen it with the shows that we've done in various communities, when we put on a show with the
Mm.
students and you see their family come in and their neighbors come in, and you hear what they've been experiencing for the last 8 months, 10 weeks, whatever the how long the program was. um, it's just good
Mhm.
vibes. There's goodness happening in a community when there are opportunities there. So that's what the foundation's been up to strategically in arts education, inclusive arts education. So that could be we classify that as basically any underserved community. um, it could be LGBT youth because there aren't enough
Mhm.
programs for them. It could be Black
Very good.
communities. It could be special needs communities. But what we also like to do is mix them up. So special needs students might be with typically able kids. So there's this blend that creates more awareness and creates empathy and creates more compassion training, which I think makes a healthier world. When you see kids interacting instead of the opposite, which would be bullying, and
Yeah.
separation. We like to mix everyone up together, if we can, or at least champion those programs that are making that effort to do that.
And it's transformational. I mean, yeah, you hit it on the head.
Very.
Is that how you got involved with the San Diego the Young Musicians Academy there, the Young Music Academy?
Oh, kind of. They were on our radar, as a foundation that does
Hmm.
this. Um, we had heard about them, San Diego Young Artist Music Academy, but really what lit the kind of woke me up was this year was the unfortunate um, public murder of George
Yeah.
Floyd, and the real cry of for help
Hmm.
from the Black community to say, "Hey, Black Lives Matter. Please help us. Please protect us. What the fuck is going on?"
Hmm.
I shifted my attention on this record. I knew that the reggae album that I was putting out spoke to the advancement of equality, but I also needed there to be an action. I couldn't just have a lyric and say, "Let's do this." There needed to be an action, and so this is going back a little bit, but donating my album, all the earnings that I had from that, to the movement for Black Lives to help advance equality. And I decided I'm not going to wait around for San Diego Young Artist Music Academy to show up on my foundation to-do list. I'm going to go there now with this record,
Nice.
especially because, interestingly, I totally coincidentally, two of the teachers from Estiyama sang on my record, sang on the very record that
No
that is
kidding.
generating money. Yeah, so I thought this is it's it's
That's
it's it's too close to home. Like it is home.
It's a
So
calling.
let's do that. It's a calling. So right away we were able to give them a very generous donation, and since then we've been going down there and helping to improve their studio space and their educational space because they have some students will have to come into the place for lessons, whereas many others are being taught virtually through the school. We're in there putting together as many pieces to help them reach their students as possible. And of
Excellent.
course, we got some great gear from you guys
Yeah,
as
our
well.
pleasure.
So thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. Because
You know,
they've been around since the mid 90s, and a lot of technology has changed since then, and the space has changed since then. And the founders are now in their 70s and 80s. They're getting up there, but the younger generation, their kids, their grandchildren want to keep the school going. And
nice.
the equipment we got from you, from both radio and from Primacousitics, uh, just lights us all up. It does. It just lights us all up
Nice.
because the kids come in, the teachers come in, and they feel the professional attention that's being given to the space. And that adds to the experience those kids are having as students. And even when you have a local music shop, I grew up with a place called Mechanicsville Music right by my high school, and it was both a music shop and music lessons.
Hmm.
And even if you weren't in there to buy an instrument or get the lessons, it was a clubhouse. It was a hangout. You could
Nice.
go there and just be near instruments, be near other musicians. You could just be around the vibe of music, which sometimes that's all you want. It's just to kind of
Yeah.
catch somebody else playing, or get some inspiration so you can go back to your instrument. And that's really what you've helped us accomplish down at SD
Our,
Yama.
eh,
So thanks for that.
our pleasure. And it's, I mean, it's good to geek out with the gear. It's important for us. It kind of speaks to you know, a lot of the staff. I mean, there's probably about 30, maybe more than a 30, 40% of our company are all musicians. And when it comes down
Mm,
to helping people that we have relationships with, like yourself, and support us, and looking at what you're up to and what makes a difference, I guess, in what you're behind and what you're supporting, it matters to us to actually step up and say, hey, yeah, we
cool.
want to help because we see a need, to help support where you're going. So yeah, our pleasure. And I want to thank you for the support of Radial and Primacousitc over the years. You've been a long time supporter. Hats off to you for donating your proceeds of that album to
Yeah, so
a seriously
that's the
important
other
cause.
story. Yeah, you heard about
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
So so when I sold the record, basically after I made the record, I went and BMG made me a really nice offer for a couple of albums, and I thought this is going to be fun. They're an independent label. They let me be as creative as I want on my own terms, and then they helped me put the records out. And I was able to get recouped on my recording costs. So all my musicians were paid for and the recording costs paid for. But then I had this surplus of advance to live on. But I'm not the kind of artist that really needs to live on the advance. And we were living through a very dark time in the US. In fact, we've been living in a dark time. In fact, if anything, we're starting to see the light. And what I saw was an opportunity that I could turn this album into its own fundraiser, its own foundation, really. So I donated all of the advance, $250,000, to various charities from Black Lives Matter to Equal Justice Initiative to local organizations here in San Diego, all Black owned or supporting Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives. Which, for anyone paying attention or
Yeah,
not, Black Lives Matter is simply an organization promoting, pushing pragmatic policy to protect Black lives.
mhm,
It's that simple.
yeah.
And I felt I had a unique opportunity to really put some money and some energy into that movement so that
Wow.
it's a movement and not
Hmm.
just a moment.
Thanks for doing that. I mean, that's, man, we need more people doing that because there's so many causes that we can stand strong,
Yeah,
try to support, and by doing that, it just makes a difference. But that kind of, to
sure
me,
does.
it's a thread that kind of weaves through everything that you've been doing. Um, to supporting the recent NEVA Save Our Stages festival and getting on board with things that matter, especially with the fact
Yeah.
that we're maybe not seeing any live shows anytime soon other than streaming. And how was that? How was doing
Oh
those
man,
shows?
awesome. Just awesome because with Neva we got to go into a venue. We got to go into the Belly Up here in Solana Beach, which is a legendary venue. It's small, 600 capacity, but the biggest bands nationally and internationally play there. So it's got a good vibe. And it has a local feeling too, you know. It's just a very local bar, but it's a world-class stage. So to be given the chance to play there after 10 months of
Mm,
just nothing happening and having to
yeah.
play on your little stream cams and alone in your room,
Hmm.
my room, it felt great. So I took a couple of friends from Raining Jane, Mona, and Chaska, and we played. Uh, and because we've been, you know, since this whole thing has happened, this pandemic has forced us indoors, my reggae album has come out, and a lot of that music is driven by the bass lines.
Hmm.
And I was not anticipating having no band because of this pandemic. So it actually gave me a great opportunity to learn how to play the
I
bass.
saw
And so at Neva, it
that.
was really my debut bass gig. I had Chaska playing the skanks, and I had Mona on percussion,
Yeah.
and even she's learning new reggae percussion because we weren't that band filling in those places. We were the singers really on that record. So for these gigs, it was great because we got to really learn how to embody the arrangements of this cool music,
Nice. Yeah.
and and then playing with a purpose for
Yeah.
Neva and playing for a purpose. Period. Just feels it always feels good. You know,
Hmm.
it's just you know you're helping others. You're helping yourself because you're a musician who wants stage time, but
Yeah.
you're also helping others by in that alignment, which is cool.
100%. I mean, it's in your DNA. It's in our DNA as musicians. But how does it look? I guess how does it look for you for the future of maybe not being able to do shows for a while? How does that feel?
Scary. I mean, I didn't realize how much of my own identity I put into the feeling of working on a stage, and that includes
Hmm.
showing up for load in and sound check and
Hmm.
tweaking your gear. Playing sound check's one of my favorite hours of the day because you get to play in these big empty spaces. You know, the venue is yours to experiment with, and then of course the thrill of playing in front of an audience. But all of that sort of drives who I become as far as my health and being grounded and being prepared to share with an audience and being well rehearsed on my instrument, all of that. And you take that away, and I I start to lose myself. I'm like, well, who am I now? What do I do? What are my routines? Because my routine has always been looking forward to the next show.
Hmm.
So it's a little tough, but I also realize I'm in a privileged place. I have this beautiful music room, as you can see at home. I can practice and play and continue to create, generate new music. But to not be able to be out there promoting this record and not playing with my friends or for our fans is really tough. But that feeling that I feel, I know must be magnified for other artists that aren't as privileged to be at home comfortable as I am right now. You know, there's many other musicians who are probably having to put music on hold and get other jobs to supplement their income,
Wow. Yeah.
which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking because for some reason we've lost live concerts and the joy that comes with those festivities.
Yeah. It's tragic times to think that we're on hold, waiting for
Yeah,
the ability to play for a room full of people again. And I did see the show, and I thought, hey, the girls are fantastic that you've been playing with. Same
yeah,
band that when I saw you here in Vancouver at the QE.
that's
Um,
right.
just multi-talented. They're just lovely voices and accompany everything that you do really well. I thought the show at the Belly Up was really good, really good.
Ah,
So.
thanks, thanks. It was a sweet. I wish the bass was a little louder in the mix, but that's because I'm a bass player now, and I feel like those melodies were important to the set.
But if you were playing
But yeah,
guitar, you
Raining
would have
Jane
put
was
the guitar
phenomenal.
louder in the mix.
Yeah, yeah, all right. Exactly.
Do you have any other projects on the radar that you can share that are coming up?
Uh, I kind of do, but I'm not. Well, okay, yeah, I will tell you. Yeah, there's some that I'm not going to share because they're in the works, and I don't want to jinx them, and they may never happen. Um, but looking ahead, I have two projects in the works. One is with a great artist named Gregory Page, and his album comes out in November, with the vinyl release in January. And I mention him because he gave me my first gig in San Diego, and he has been a mentor and a hero of mine in songwriting and musicianship for a very long time. His name's Gregory Page. And when I signed with BMG, we also added in a little vanity label. So I have a new record label now. It's called Interrobang Records. And Gregory is my first artist on Interrobang. And I do some background singing on the record, and I'm in the videos. And we did a little backyard concert here recently that we're going to put up soon. So
Sweet.
I recommend looking up the Gregory Page Live
I
in the
will.
Backyard concert series that'll be up on my channels. And similarly, Gregory and I, many years ago, made a gospel album for my grandmother. And anytime I made an
Wow.
album, usually a pop album, that was my sort of history for the last 15 years, my grandmother would ask me, "Is it gospel?" Real excited. I said, "No, it's not gospel, but I think you'll like it." And she'd listen and she could tell she was just like, "Whatever, whatever, kid." So one holiday, I decided to make her a gospel album. I chose all of her favorite songs
Wow.
from her CD collection and from my other grandmother's piano bench, and chose 10 songs of classic country gospel inspirational type of
Nice.
songs like His Eyes on the Sparrow and The Old Rugged Cross.
Yeah.
Um, and that has been this beautiful little record that's been sitting on my desk for years. I should say sitting on my desk because I gave it to my grandmother and my grandmother
Hmm.
only. And when she passed away a few years ago, I got my master's back, so to speak. And so yeah, my album came back to me as well as every postcard that I ever sent to my grandmother.
Wow.
It was kind of heartbreaking because
Totally.
you think when you send that to someone, they ingest it and it becomes them forever somehow. But when my grandmother passed, I got my little CD back and all these postcards.
Wow.
So I think next year I'm going to put that gospel record
Nice.
out. So that's a project I'm looking forward to. It's very, very different than the reggae album. And that is actually what Interrobang Records is all about. It's Interrobang is the name of the punctuation for exclamation point and question mark. So as in,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Or I love it. What is
What
it?
is it?
It's so I wanted my record label to be that. I wanted it to be music that's like, wow, I really love
Wow.
this, but what is it? And the reggae album is essentially that. That's the first release on Interrobang, thanks to BMG. The reggae album's like, wow, I love this. What is it? Is it reggae? Is it R&B? What's going on? Who is
Nice.
this? Same thing with Gregory's album. It's Americana, but it's infused by his Irish roots. It has
Oh,
beautiful
nice.
uilleann pipes, and fiddles and banjos and great mountain instruments and
Beautiful.
beautiful harmonies.
Wow.
And then we've got the gospel album coming out, which is very Jesus, which I'm not so Jesus, but I am very into spirituality and constantly asking, why are we
Yes.
here? And constantly looking for
Yeah.
peace. So yeah, those are some projects that I have coming up that are all
Yeah.
music
That
based.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing
it's
that.
fun.
Was he somebody you met in the early the coffee house days, the
Yes.
coffee shop days?
In fact, the
Gotcha.
very first time I visited Java Joe's coffee shop, which was my residency for many, many years,
Hmm.
very first time I visited there, Gregory and several other of my heroes were playing a songwriter showcase.
Hmm.
And I don't know if my manager at the time slipped Java Joe a 20 or what, but he got me a slot on that songwriter showcase. I played my songs. I was nervous. My songs were long and terrible. But Gregory asked after that set, he's like, hey, I'm doing a CD release next weekend. Why don't you come down and be my
Nice.
opener? I was like, yes. So he gave me my first gig in San Diego. He really did. And we've been friends ever since. And even when I first was making demos, Gregory was the guy with the ADAT
No
machine who could help me
kidding.
record songs.
Wow.
So we've been buddies ever since. He actually helped me make my first recording. So I'm
That's
thrilled as
awesome.
to now have my own little label to help him make his recording. So it's it's an old school friendship that's really blooming right now.
That's awesome because I know that you were in
Yeah.
sort of like a house gig for quite some time there, weren't you? At the
Oh
Java
yeah,
Joe's.
I was Java Joe's, and that was the premier coffee shop in the 90s and early 2000s. It was the
Yeah.
spot. And when I first showed up, that's what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. But even Java wouldn't give me the time just because I thought I was good. So I went down the street to a different coffee shop and played there all summer into the winter to just establish my sound, my songs, and build an audience.
Mhm.
And after like 6 to 8 months of that, Java, who's only a block away, he's like, "All right, why don't you come down here and play your songs down here?" And we've been friends ever since as well. He's a good dude, Java Joe.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, I wanted to shift gears a
Mhm.
little. I wanted to talk about a couple of things sort of behind the scenes, I guess away from the music, which I know is
Mm.
it's fascinating to for me to find out more information about what you're up to. But the farm, I've talked to Eds a
Mm.
lot about your farm and what you do, and I got to say, it sounds like a beautiful area where you are in South Morro Hills, is it? And
Yeah. Hmm.
coffee,
Yeah, it's inland oceanside, and we grow coffee. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Go ahead, keep going.
well, I
Sorry.
was gonna say, how did you get the idea to actually grow coffee?
Um, it was presented to us via a farming mentor friend of mine, a guy named Scott Murray. He knew that I was really going for it out here in avocados. And
Yeah.
now the avos were planted in the late 60s, early 70s. I basically, when I moved in, I kind of inherited the trees because that's what the region is. The house is here,
Hmm.
but you don't really have a yard. You have groves and orchards.
Hmm.
And as I got into it, over the general care of them, I got really into it. I've been here for 16 years, and around 2010, I started to really care about the fate of the trees as the landowner. It's up to me to determine how long are these trees going to live? When do they need to be pruned? When are we going to harvest? What are we feeding them? Can we transition to organic? And so I just start to get into the whole process, and as I do, I realized how much energy it really does
Wow.
consume, energy and finances, all of that.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of input. And I was actually feeling kind of defeated. I was like, well, how if I'm putting in all of this energy and I'm only really getting back this kind of almost break even amount of
Hmm.
avocados every year, what's paying for the water and the labor, like besides music? Will I ever be able to win at farming? And he said a key thing. He says, "Well, you got to grow other stuff. You can't just grow avocados. You need to grow a variety of fruits year round so that you and find customers that would want those fruits." Like, oh, okay, yeah,
Wow.
you're really speaking the truth. Um, and so we started looking around for that, and someone gave us a great tip. They're like, grow something that nobody else grows, and
Hmm.
that way you will have something very special. So, oh, what is that going to be? Saffron, artichokes? Like, what do people grow? And we caught wind of a avo grower who had been experimenting with coffee in between his trees, and for the past 15 years has been doing it very, very well and getting great
Yes.
reviews on the coffee and the
Wow.
Specialty Coffee Association. And that was up in Santa Barbara. So he came down here and started making basically a PowerPoint presentation to
Hmm.
avo growers, and it just clicked. I mean, my whole career started in coffee shops.
Hmm.
I met my partner who once owned a coffee shop. We love coffee culture.
Hmm.
Coffee has never been local in the U.S. It's always been an import, always. The only U.S. areas that have grown coffee are Hawaii or Puerto Rico. So this is the first time coffee has appeared on mainland U.S. soil. And since then, that was about 6 years ago that we got introduced to coffee. Since then, we have planted probably 4,000 coffee trees. The California coffee growers are now a group of about 60 plus farmers throughout the whole state
Kidding.
that are growing basically the same kind of specialty grade coffee. We're all under one coffee company called Fringe because we're on the
Hmm.
fringe of the tropics. We're on the fringe of the industry. A
Hmm.
lot of people don't think it's possible, but we're proving it's possible. And coffee could really be considered the new wine of California. We're basically growing beautiful cherries that have beautiful, complex, sweet flavors that then get processed, dried, milled, and turned
That's
into
fantastic.
a an award-winning coffee. So far, people around the world are lining up to try California coffee. So I feel like we really lucked
That's
out. We found something
wow.
unique that not many people grow that also
Hmm.
touches our hearts and fills our coffee cups locally, which is very, very unique. Very unique.
Thanks, thanks for sharing that. I mean, how do you stick handle or navigate the weather and the issues around
Mm.
water supply, drought, all that? Because those are real issues where you are.
Those are real issues. Yeah. I mean, we had to kind of start from scratch
Mm.
and make sure we put in wells, which is a
Wow.
huge, huge, huge investment. But having water rights on your property definitely takes the edge off of, when I'm using city water, it's two grand a month at least in just in one spot. So total, we could be spending upwards of 6 grand a month just on water.
Wow.
And that's not sustainable, not for me, not for any farmer.
Sure.
So most farms, most premium grow facilities have wells. Um, and we don't use that much because of how much plant material we have and because of how slopey we are. We're able to sequester a lot of water like a sponge.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't get a lot of rainfall, but surprisingly, we did through most of the year up until summer, and now the rainfall's starting to come back. So climate change has actually worked in our favor, but only in this one little Southern California bubble.
Mm.
Um, we luckily we are Southern California, so we have a year-round grow season.
Hmm.
We things kind of slow down in January. That's what we would call our winter. And the
Hmm.
cool thing about coffee is people hear about shade grown coffee or high altitude coffee,
Hmm.
those being very, very high grade specialty grades. And what shade grow and high altitude does is it slows down the rate at which the coffee cherry grows. So rather than
It
speeding
matures.
through a summer, yeah, exactly. It takes about 10 months to mature.
Yeah.
And we have winter. So
Yeah.
around November, December, the coffee trees, everything just slows down, kind of goes into a
Nice.
hibernation. And then around February, March, it picks up again. So
Yeah.
we have flowering and we have beans showing up at the end of summer and the fall.
Mm.
Things slow down. And then by spring, the berries start to ripen, the cherries ripen.
Wow.
And the result of that is a very, very tasty coffee. The reason coffee's never been grown in California isn't because of the weather, it's really because of the money. Coffee
Kidding.
historically has been 50 cents a cup, endless, endless cups, free refills. And
Okay.
that's because
Yeah.
it's been grown by cheap labor around the world. It's been grown in conflict regions. It's been
Hmm.
grown where there doesn't have to be any accountability or living wages paid out.
That's right.
And what has happened over the last few years is coffee has become more expensive and more appreciated. And thanks to fair trade and visibility, farmers in those developing countries have better chances at getting living wage and getting a fair price for what they've been growing. But that kind of competition has made it impossible for California growers to produce coffee because of our labor laws, because of our water rates. The risk is just too high. People 10 years ago wouldn't pay $40 a cup or $40 a pound for
Yeah.
coffee. It just was unthinkable. But now there are coffee connoisseurs and appreciators who know that $40, $60 a pound coffee is really special and
It's
delicious
special.
coffee. So that's really what's brought coffee here. Was finally this sort of awakening to the value of coffee. And then what we're
Hmm.
hoping is that the innovation of California through not just storytelling and pricing will also help other countries, but even the research and innovation that's being done through breeding and
Hmm.
understanding the trees will also be able to help the rest of the world in their replanting of coffee, because a lot of the rest of the
Gotcha.
world is just using, um, their seedlings are just rolling over, but the genetics are so scattered, you don't really know
Mm,
what you're going to get. Plus, climate change is putting harsh impacts on the
big
rest of the
time.
planet. So, innovations in California can create more drought tolerant trees that can help service those other parts of the world. So, it's a really special time right now for coffee
And
and agriculture in general.
and the general public, the connoisseurs are going to spend money on a good cup of coffee. I have no problem going in myself
Definitely,
and paying
definitely. Like,
good money for a good coffee, for sure. You know.
yeah. I mean, it's a treat, It's something. It's the most global act we do every day. We're getting coffee from somewhere else on the planet, and it should be considered a ritual. It should be something to really appreciate every sip, and certainly the time you spend with it is your valuable time that you spend with it. So I think if you put a price on coffee, you're also putting a price on your personal space and the personal time and
Yeah.
attention that you're giving to your work or to your time out.
Is there going to be a Mraz coffee in the near future, like locally, or
Yeah, last year one of our local roasters did carry it. They wanted to be a
yeah?
San Diego roaster called Bird Rock did want to be the first in the U.S. to carry it, and they were, and it was phenomenal. I think it lasted about 2 weeks. They sold out pretty fast,
Yeah.
and it was their coffee, Bird Rock Roasters, but in the fine print, Mraz Family Farms, myself
Nice.
and Justin Jonte, who's my partner out here, we got the credit on the label as the producers, and it was, I've seen my
Awesome.
name on albums and marquees, but to see your name on a coffee was next level. It really was like a proud parent,
That's pretty
especially because it
cool.
took 5 years to produce that first cup.
And I mean, your family history, wasn't your grandfather a farmer? Like, doesn't it sort of run in the family?
Yeah, both of my grandfathers were engineers, woodworkers, welders, and farmers,
Hmm.
orchard guys. My mom's dad was more of an orchard guy and would do grafting and really care about tree varieties, whereas my dad's dad was more of okra and melons and more of the row
Okra.
crops, the annuals. But it was enough that growing up between their two households, I was climbing fruit trees and I'm running over, my brother's running over the okra and go-kart by accident. But it was a victory to us because we hated that okra.
uh, thanks for the visual. Back on, I think it was like your second album. Is that where you met Rob Thomas? Were you supporting Matchbox or was it Rob's solo tour? Or?
Yeah, Rob solo stuff. Now, I actually met Rob back in '99. We had a mutual friend named Peter Stewart from a band called Dog's Eye View. And Peter, just a buddy of mine who took me under his wing in Los Angeles, but he was out touring with Matchbox a lot. And so I started to meet some of those guys through Peter. And I had just shown up in California. I was just new on the scene. I wasn't even really playing coffee shops yet. But they became these kind of, I don't know, mentors, brothers
Mhm.
in the community that made me feel welcome. And yeah,
Nice.
around 2006, 6, 7, I don't know. My brain is, it's a long time ago. But yeah, we toured around with Rob Thomas on his solo stuff and got
Nice.
to be buds through then. And since then, Rob has helped me out
Mhm.
on our foundation side when we're doing concerts with young people. And I've gone out to New York to help him as well with various events. He's a caregiver for sure.
Big time.
And he recently did me a buddy favor and showed up on a TV show that I did over the summer. And as a thank you to Rob, because I knew it might have been outside of his comfort zone to do it, I'm not sure, but I sent him one of the Bluetooth DIs that
That's
you
right.
guys make,
The
because I just think that is a such a cool addition to a pedal board or to my console. it's just such a convenient and beautiful stereo DI for quick access. Anyway, so I sent that to Rob as a thank you. So that was thanks for that
No problem. Our pleasure to
for
help with
helping
that,
me
because I remember
make
when
that connection.
Ets had messaged me, and I know that we gave you one a while ago just to try out, and he said, yeah, he loves it. And then he said, hey, because of your relationship with Rob, would we send over one as a gift from you to Rob? And I thought, that's great, because I think it's a useful device for people that want to just quick pair a device into the console for referencing or whatever, and it's pretty convenient. Sounds great, and it's a pretty
Yeah,
popular device. I wanted to say thanks for that, because I know that Rob appreciated it, and we've been dealing with those guys sort of on the side for quite some time. So I wanted to say thanks for that.
cool, cool.
Really appreciate it.
Oh,
We
man,
we
thank
sent
you. I mean,
down.
it is a
eh,
convenient device.
we love it. It's again, sharing devices with you. You've been using radio for a long time. The new HDI, you've been able to record with the HDI, or any recent work with it that you could comment on?
Well, we haven't done any like big recording. So basically, I have two rooms here. I have what you're seeing is kind of sort of my writing room. This is sort of my suite. But right in there, we have a ginormous Neve console, and
Gotcha.
that's the much bigger room when we bring in. So I've been doing a lot of suite work over here. I have this cute little like Neve sidecar, 16 channel, very nice. But I can make. I just try to. I work quickly. So yes, I've been using it when I'm working quickly on new projects, but I've yet to kind of take it into the big setting and
Gotcha.
go for, I guess, a master recording.
Gotcha.
But I think it's beautiful. I think the power that it gives my acoustics, whether it's ukulele or my nylon string guitar, those are the kind of my two main guitars. Um, I'm getting a beautiful, just natural tone, which is hard to get when you plug a guitar in. It's just hard to get the sound of the wood. Usually you just kind of end up with some
Nice.
electronics and some tones, but this is giving me more body, so which I love, and I appreciate
Well,
that.
now that you're a bass player, plug your bass into it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh
You're
my
a
gosh.
screaming bass player. Yeah, you can dial
Yeah.
up some old vintage SVT kind of growly bass tones with that thing. It's got a nice feature where you can really saturate the transformer in it. It's not a tube, but it's a transformer that you can saturate and get that grit, that hair that
Yeah.
kind of starts to beef up the sound of not only an acoustic guitar, but bass guitar. So yeah, um, it's one of those devices that I think is a bit of a departure for us. We've been kind of like the standard regular DI manufacturers, and that DI is a departure for us, and getting some serious rave reviews. So thanks for the comments about it, and hope you continue to enjoy it. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on was the Primacousitc stuff. You've had Prima, and you just pointed in reference to the big room. I think quite a while ago there was a bunch of Prima that went down there, and helps to treat your space. But is there anything you can add to the Primacousitc stuff that you've been using, that comment about how you're using it and the results you're getting?
Well, when we moved in the Neve, basically everything's in one big room in there, and we're trying to both track and mix in
Hmm,
that same space, which is very, very cool and convenient. But I'm new to mixing. Jeff Berkeley, who really runs this place, he's not as new to mixing, so his expertise, bringing in the panels, uh, positioning the speakers a good distance
gotcha.
from the wall, and it's been cool. We tried it in many different configurations. The drums on the left, this and that. Just try it this facing this way, facing that. But we also have the ability to open our doors, which is really nice. That and it just you walk right out into the farm space. But in general, um, I didn't build this studio to be a studio. I didn't really know what I was doing when I built it in 2005. So it was just kind of a shell, and everything is parallel, which isn't so great because it creates a lot of reflection. And so prior to Primacoustic's, uh, I'm just basically hanging art and bookshelves and throwing stuff up on the walls to try to deflect. Really, nothing's really absorbing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of scattering, I guess. But now we have a lot more absorption.
Yeah.
We have reflection that is more meaningful
Mhm.
to us. Um, some bass trapping. I mean, once you get it right, it's hard to listen to music almost anywhere else because you suddenly have treated the space so that you're hearing what's coming out of the speakers. You're not hearing the speakers and what's
Mhm.
bouncing off the walls beside you and behind you. And that's been very, very helpful. And when we made this reggae album here last year, Look for the Good, we made it entirely here. So that was it was great proof that everything we've been doing, both in the electronics, in the board, but also on the walls, has really made a huge difference because that album sonically just sounds so good. So it was
Mhm.
proof that what we've been doing around here, all the extra steps to rearrange one more time and to try this treatment and versus that. We actually haven't even gotten to install the clouds. We were hoping to do some mixed clouds and be able to
Mhm.
bring the ceiling up and down. We haven't even gotten there yet. Don't know if we actually will make that leap.
Yeah.
I want to, but you can just keep tweaking, and that's the fun thing about this industry too, is like you can just keep geeking and tweaking, and it does inspire the music.
Yeah.
It does. Like you hear something new, and then you want to go and create something new to fill in the space.
Nice. Nice,
Yeah.
nice segue. The inspiration and engaging. What advice would you give to somebody that was breaking into the business based on where you're at and what you've learned, what you've gone through?
Oh, ay, ay, ay. Definitely start with the art itself, right? Because that's the expression that is coming
Yeah.
through. So it's for young people or people, anybody starting out, doesn't matter how old you are. Do you, do you, and however
Yeah.
uncomfortable that feels, sing your truth, sing whatever is going on around you. Um, and maybe you're not a singer, maybe you're a guitar player or a keyboard player. Go with your heart and your instincts. Like I have trouble sitting down and learning covers or trying to figure this or that out because when I sit down, I just immediately want to create and pour out something that I've never heard before. I want it to be a
Wow.
new expression from who I am. And if I'm lucky, and I always record, I'll turn on my phone memo or I'll flip on Pro
Yeah.
Tools before I get started. Because usually you're
Hmm.
going to surprise yourself. Some kind of truth is going to pour out of you that even you are going to go, wow, I didn't know that was
Hmm.
in me. I didn't know I could play that, or I didn't know that I would ever say that. And that, if you're surprised by that, then an audience will be surprised by that. And so I always try to encourage people to just really start on themselves, cultivate their own joys, their freedoms, their passions, journal, write down the topics or the situations that they care about the most. It could be as simple as love for another person or thing or pet or the
Nice.
planet or something you want to heal in the world, something that's broken. I mean, certainly when you start journaling, it will reveal to you what needs to be said. And then as far
Nice.
as going out and making it in the industry, I am not I'm not a good authority on how to give advice for that part of the process, especially now that everything has just been completely cha- anew. Everything is
It's
anew, and in fact, I'm even impressed with apps like TikTok, which
mhm.
only will show 15 to 60 seconds of content. But in that 15 to 60 seconds, I've seen very short songs, both original songs and classics, get incredible amounts of exposure. I mean, millions and millions of ears that then does translate into showing up on the charts again. It does roll over into radio. It does roll over into streams and sales. But those types of apps, and there's tons of them. There are tons and tons of get involved apps. I mean, even guitar tabs, which is something I use for guitar and piano when I'm learning other songs, they even have a a sharing side of it where you can turn the camera on yourself and play the cover and share it with a community of people. And so audiences now are closer than they've ever been, even though we're farther away from each other than we've ever been. So
That's
I don't yet know how to truly navigate this other than make great art. If you make
yeah,
great art and you're true to yourself, it will connect with the right people. And that it could be just enough people that help donate to your Venmo or your PayPal or help you sell your CD, or it could really connect with millions that ends up getting you a record deal or placement in movies and television and stuff like that.
absolutely.
So, but what is most important is make great art. So that's
Right
what I
on.
always tell young people is like, do you, don't try to be someone else because by the time you figure out how to be them, they've changed and
Yeah,
just be yourself.
good advice. Thanks for that. Hey, I wanted to ask you about you've I mean you've gone to Antarctica. You've you know like you've been in film. You've been in theater. Is there something that just jumps out that's an experience that stayed with you so vividly that you want to share from your past? That's not music related.
Hmm.
I would
Hmm.
ask.
Gosh. I feel like the music related. Well, you said Antarctica.
Hmm.
That was eye opening. Um, that was eye opening. Many believe the Earth is flat, and I don't agree with that. Uh, have you heard this? That Antarctica is actually like the pizza crust around the edge of the Earth. It's the ice
No.
wall around us, and that we're actually flat. The
No.
reason nobody can cross Antarctica because it's really just like a wall, like the Truman Show. I think that's a hilarious conspiracy theory. Uh, but yeah, I was invited not because I'm a scientist and it's yes, I care about the environment, but I was invited to entertain people on a boat because it's a 40-hour boat ride from Ushuaia, South America, and all the way to Palmer Station in the Antarctic Peninsula. And it's 40-hour boat ride through rough seas. We had rough seas coming back, so everybody was blue, green, seasick,
No.
just awful.
Oh,
Um, but it really was music that got me there. And I love telling that story, especially to young people, because they ask, where have you played? And I said, I've played on all seven continents. Even Antarctica, we got to get
nice.
off the boat and do some hiking. And we got to take
Nice.
some dinghies out into sort of an iceberg bay. And Mona Tavakoli was with me, my percussionist friend.
Yeah.
Uh, she had her cajon on the dinghy, and I had my guitar, and we had a little dinghy boat driver, and we're out there playing songs to these huge icebergs and to other people who were kayaking and dinghying around. Uh, and it was a thrill, but that was our job. Our job was to entertain people on the boat. So we did a couple of shows, but we also hosted open mic nights. We hosted
Nice.
mud boot fashion shows. We would do morning announcements on the PA system and sing songs on the PA. And it was a thrill because when I was a kid, I thought, well, maybe one of my gigs will be a cruise ship. I didn't know what stage I would end up on. I just knew I wanted to be in the entertainment industry, and cruise ships are one of those possibilities. And luckily, I never ended up in the cruise circuit, but for this special trip, I had met Al Gore at the Tonight Show. We were both guests on the Tonight Show, and was a big fan of The Inconvenient Truth, and I had also written songs inspired by that film. And I reached out my hand and shook his hand, and I said, if you ever need a musical ally, give me a call. Like I love the work that
Nice.
you're doing. And a couple of months later, he called and said, "You want to come to Antarctica? I got a bunch of people that are going down there for a climate summit. We're going to learn about how we, as broadcasters and corporations, innovators, how we can understand the science of climate change and then put it to good use and give it a voice and help change the way we tread on this earth."
Wow.
So I, in a way, I got to participate, but I was at the same time just kind of a fly on the wall because after those big meetings, it was like, okay, we're going to turn it over to Jason now, who's going to help us forget the doom and gloom that we've just learned about, and we're going to sing some happy songs here on this boat. Uh, so it was an awesome, awesome experience, one that
I
will
can,
stand out forever because Antarctica looks like a movie set. It doesn't even look
yeah.
real. There's blue, black, and white. Those are the only three colors that exist. I mean, they have a little bit of moss, but that's the only plant life that grows down there. So everything else are just these stark, just beautiful, pristine colors and quiet. When we got off the boat and got to do
I'll
some
bet.
hiking,
Yeah.
just quiet and surprisingly warm, which is a
No
bit
kidding.
unnerving. You know, like when you're hiking
Oh,
and you take your jacket off and you're like, wow, it's like 50 degrees in Antarctica today. It makes me nervous that eventually it will become inhabited.
yeah. No
Uh,
kidding.
but who knows?
Did you get to
But yeah,
any?
it was just stunning.
That's cool. Did you get to any of the see any of the penguin colonies or any of that while you were down there?
Oh, yes. We
Yeah.
got to go to a few islands and walk around with hundreds of thousands of
You're
penguins,
in the movie.
which, yes, it's real. It is so real. And of course the whole island's covered in penguin feces. Like
Of
it's
course.
just all it is. It's just penguin poop everywhere. And there's elephant seals there that are just constantly burping and farting. It's no place to take a date. You know, if you're trying to impress a lady, don't take her
Don't
to
go there.
Penguin Island. And yeah, we saw some whales. We even got to swim. We even got to do an
Wow.
Arctic plunge, which I thought I would be cool because I like to surf. I like to be in the ocean in the winter, but no, this was a completely different kind of
Oh,
cold.
bet.
Yeah, I thought, oh, wow, I'm gonna tread for a second, just kind of feel it and get that burn. No, man, I felt like I
No.
was on fire the second I jumped into it. I was like, let's out, let's go. But I have to add that music took me there. You know, I didn't get there from my brains. I got there because I stayed true to my music and I try to be passionate about the music that I make. And it
Awesome.
gets me invites to all kinds of crazy, crazy things. I've been to probably 100 countries on this planet, all because people want to give me a shot and hear my songs. So
Wow.
it's a cool thing. Music has real value. It has real, even though it's underappreciated in certainly in my country. We don't have the budgets for music education. We don't have
No.
like any type of minister of the arts. We don't really have. We have the National Endowment of the Arts, but it has to cover everything. It has to also cover
Yeah.
ballet and the fine arts and everything. So I look forward to the kind of future that really appreciates music and teaches music to more people, because it gets us across the aisle politically. It gets us across geographical borders. You know, in a musical setting, people put their differences aside to go in to see a concert. You know, which I think is which I think is phenomenal. Just
Oh,
it's a miracle. It's our bird song. You know,
it is.
humans making music is something that no other species on Earth does. I mean, there are birds that sing melodies and might even repeat those melodies, but they rarely will change key, or if they can, they won't add a rhythm or a pattern to it, that has a meter. Um, some animals can play the rhythm and the meter, but they don't carry a melody. We are the only species that we know of that puts all of these things together: rhythm and tone and language and rhyme, pattern, melody. There's a lot of different things that go into
Right.
the lasagna of music. We're the only one that's making
The
that
lasagna.
lasagna, and I think it is to be revered. You know, I think it's
Yeah,
to
man.
be revered. It's so magical, and more people should be introduced to it.
Well, it's the one thing that's healing and crossing borders, and hopefully more of it. Um,
Yeah,
on that note, I want to just say thank you, A, for the support, of Radial and Primacousitc. Thank you for making the time
thank
here
you.
with me today, and thanks for doing all that you're doing, from from your work with charities, and making a difference and trying to
Of course. Thank
get
you.
us to a better place. So I just wanted to say thanks for that, and hopefully we'll
Yeah,
catch up soon.
thanks.
And if you need anything, either reach out to me or have Ets reach out to me, and we're always happy to
Sure.
help
Of course we
anytime.
will.
Just on a
Awesome.
side note, I just sent down a rack to replace your API rack, because Ed sent me a picture of the one that you had, and I think it's been hard at work and seen some better days. So I said I'll send you a new one. So have an eye out for
Cool.
that. So it should show up hopefully this week. So just a little gift as our
Amazing.
thanks for making time for this. I wanted to send that
Wow.
down, just
So
throw that in the
nice.
studio, and hopefully you'll get some use out of it. So all right.
I so appreciate that. Thank you
Jason,
so much,
thanks
Jim.
again. All the best to you and your family, and keep on
Thanks.
keeping on with the coffee and the avocados and making a difference in your community there at the
Ah,
farm.
man. My life is full, man, and I'm grateful. I am. I'm grateful. Thank you so much, Jim. It's just an honor to work with you guys, and I so feel the love. I don't even know how you
Thank you,
can
man.
thank me because I feel like I'm always receiving from you guys, and you've just made our lives great on the road and here in the studio. And so, thank you
Thank you,
so
man.
very much for the attention.
Thanks, my friend. We'll catch up
Thank you,
soon.
Jim.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks, Jason.
sounds good.